Hello YouTube, fellow math students and math teachers, DeVore here again, and today we're going to talk about the algorithm for solving quadratic functions by completing the square. This video is going to cover the algorithm. We're not going to cover exactly why it works, some of the cool visual stuff that goes with it. I'm actually going to save that for another video where I can actually play with some algebra tiles. It'll be a good time. For the moment though, we're just going to go over the algorithm for those of you who need it, and if you'd like to see exactly where this comes from, tune in and I will have that video up for you. First thing we're going to do is rewrite our equation here. Minus 3x. We have this placeholder c that we need to find. Minus 28. Since we added c, we're going to need to subtract c on the outside as well. Now, what is c? Like everything, we have a formula for that. C equals our b term divided by 2 squared. In this case, we have negative 3 divided by 4 quantity squared, which is, this should be 2, sorry, got a little ahead of myself. It should be 9 divided by 4. There's where that 4 came from. Wherever we see a c, we are now going to plug that 9 over 4 back in there. We get x squared minus 3x plus 9/4 minus 28 minus 9/4 equals 0. Alright, now something cool that we can do is that this x squared minus 3x plus 9 over 4, that is actually a perfect square, where we can write it as x plus or minus something, all of that quantity squared, which is one of the reasons why this is called completing the square. Alright, now I said x plus or minus something squared, yeah. That's something we have actually already found. Let me show you what this will look like. This, if we were to do some factoring, say, this is what we would get in the end. We would get x minus 3 over 2 quantity squared. The cool thing is, we found that number already, just inside of our parentheses. That's why it's well worth it to do all of your steps, because you got this for free and you didn't have to plug it in. It's pretty darn cool. Now we still have this minus 28 minus 9/4, which if we put that into our awesome calculators, here's what we get. We get minus, never seen it do that before, minus 103 over equals 0. Now here, we are in what we have come to know as a vertex form, where my vertex for this particular parabola is at the point 3/2 negative 103 over 4. We've been using those points to graph for quite a while. Now we're going to use this to solve for our x. Remember that when we're solving for x, we're looking to get x completely by itself. Our first task is to get rid of this extra outside of our parentheses by adding to both sides. So x minus 3/2 quantity squared equals 103 over 4. Okay? Now we have this x and it's trapped in this block, this square block. We need to break it out. The way we do that is by taking the square root of both sides. Okay, x minus 3/2 equals square root of 103 over 4, which I'm going to tell you right now is the square root of 103 divided by 2, like that. So here we have, there's one thing that I forgot, and I see a lot of people forget it. I know I'm not alone. Please make sure that you have this plus or minus on the outside. I see a lot of times I see students forget the plus or minus, Please remember that that is there. It just needs to be just automatic whenever you do this step of completing the square, that the plus or minus comes out here. All right, to get x by itself now, we add 3 halves to both sides. We get x equals 3 halves plus or minus square root of 3 divided by 2. And if we wanted to, we could just put that in our calculator and we get a really nasty decimal. But for the moment, I'm just going to leave it like that. When I ask for answers, please, please, please leave it like that with the square root already in there. Don't try and take it out, because I want it to be as exact as possible. If I were to be measuring this, I would put it in the calculator and decide for myself how many decimal places I needed it to. This gives me the option to just go ahead and plug it in without having to worry about you, the student, rounding it for me. Cool. Little messy. Fractions. Not so bad, really. Let us do this next one. Now, whenever there is a number in front of the x squared, we are actually going to factor that out at the very beginning. We're left with 3 times x squared minus 4x. We're still going to just add c. We've got the plus 7, and then because here we've got the plus c here, but we're not just adding 1 c, yeah? We're adding 3 c's, which means to balance this out, we need to subtract 3 c's on the outside. Our c, though, is still the same. We're just going to be using this equation here on the inside. C equals b divided by 2 quantity squared, which for our purposes is negative 4 over 2 quantity squared, which should be 4. Let's go ahead and plug that in. 3 times x squared minus 4x. If I could type, that'd be great. Plus 4. Plus 7 minus 3 times 4 is 12. Cool. Now, when we go ahead and squish this guy together, we still have this number here in the parentheses, just we need to simplify it down a little bit. We have negative 4 divided by 2, which if we put that in our calculator will just give us minus 2. Keep the 3 out front. We have x minus 2 quantity squared. 7 minus 12 gives us minus 5 equals 0. And we're going to go through the same kind of process of getting that square jail, that square block by itself. To do that, we're going to add 5 to both sides. Here's what we get. Equals 5. And then, before we do anything, we need to get rid of this 3 somehow. We need to get rid of this multiplying by 3. To do that, of course, we have to divide by 3. Here's what we end up with when all of that is done. 5 divided by 3. All right, now we're in a place where we can take the square root of both sides. Okay. When we take the square root of both sides, we get x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 5 over 3, which, if you're like me and you like fractions to be, if you want the radicals on the bottom to go away, I do prefer that. 5 divided by square root 3, which gives us, when we multiply the top and the bottom by root 3 so that the radical in the denominator goes away, you get, whoa, something, whew, I don't know what happened there. That was a little scary. Thank goodness for undo. We get plus or minus square root 15 divided by 3. Cool. We're in a good spot here. Last step, we need to add 2 to both sides, which gives us x equals plus 2 plus or minus the square root of 15 divided by 3. And there's our answer. Again, if we want to be able to graph this, we can just put it in our calculator and we'll get a nasty decimal, and we can round to as many decimal places as we choose. That's what I would prefer you do. Alright, so there are 2 examples with fractions even, because I'm a terrible, evil person, of how to complete the square and how to solve for x. Thank you so much for tuning in to this video. If you like what you see, please feel free to like and subscribe and send me a message. That way I know you like what I do, and you can even give me some suggestions for future videos. So I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.